Look down at your legs right now. Do you see them? Those bluish-purple ropes winding under your skin like rivers gone wrong. Or maybe you don't see anything yet, but your legs ache by 4 p.m. They feel heavy, they throb at night, and you've started avoiding skirts, shorts, anything that shows them. Here's the statistic that nobody puts on a billboard. 1 in 3 adults over the age of 45 has some degree of chronic venous insufficiency. That means their veins are failing them, quietly, every single day. And the terrifying part? In more than 60% of those cases, the person doesn't know it's a vascular problem at all. They think it's tiredness, they think it's age, they think it's just the way their family is. This is not a cosmetic problem. This is not a vanity problem. This is a circulatory disease that, if left unchecked, can progress to venous ulcers, deep vein thrombosis, and in worst-case scenarios, pulmonary embolism. That's a blood clot that travels to your lungs. That kills people. And yet, what does the system hand you? Compression stockings and a referral to a surgeon? That is the sum total of what most of you will ever receive. I'm going to change that today. Let me be direct with you, because nobody in a white coat is going to tell you this. The modern healthcare system was not designed around the concept of venous health optimization. It was designed around billing codes, procedure volumes, and pharmaceutical revenue cycles. There is no billing code for taught patient how to reverse early-stage venous hypertension through dietary and movement intervention. There is, however, a very lucrative billing code for endovenous laser ablation, a surgical procedure that costs between $4,000 and $12,000 per leg and carries a meaningful recurrence rate because it treats the vein, not the cause. Think about that for a moment. The system profits when your veins keep failing. It profits when you come back. It profits when the vein next to the one they burned also develops insufficiency, which it does in approximately 25 to 40% of cases within 5 years, according to published vascular surgery literature. This is not a conspiracy. This is just economics. And once you understand the economics, you understand why your physician's standard of care stops at the visible symptom and never asks the deeper question: why is the venous wall failing in the first place? That is the question I have spent 15 years trying to answer, and today I'm giving you what I found, for free. Before I go any further, if this channel has ever helped you look at your health differently, I want to ask you something. We are incredibly close to 100,000 subscribers, and I want you to understand what that milestone means. It means YouTube will amplify this content to people who are sitting in pain right now with zero access to this information. It means a 58-year-old woman in rural Oklahoma who can't afford a vascular surgeon might find this video instead. Every subscriber is a vote that preventative medicine deserves a platform. So, if you haven't yet, hit subscribe. Hit the like button. It costs you nothing, and it costs someone else their suffering. Now, let's get into the biology, because this is where it gets extraordinary. To understand varicose veins, you need to understand one fundamental concept. The one-way valve system inside your veins is not mechanical. It is biological. And biology degrades when you don't feed it properly. Your veins, specifically the deep and superficial veins of the lower extremities, are lined with a single-cell thick layer called the endothelium. This is not just wallpaper. This endothelial lining is a living, secreting, signaling organ in its own right. It produces nitric oxide, which keeps the vein wall elastic and responsive. It produces prostacyclin, which prevents platelet aggregation. It regulates the tone and permeability of the entire vessel. Inside these veins are structures called venous valves, small bicuspid leaflets made of connective tissue reinforced with smooth muscle. These valves open when blood pushes upward toward the heart and snap closed when gravity tries to pull it back down. This is how blood defies gravity in your legs. This is the mechanism that keeps you upright and functional. Now, what happens when the endothelium becomes dysfunctional? What happens when the smooth muscle in the valve leaflets loses its tone? The valve starts to fail. It no longer closes completely. Blood begins to reflux, to fall backward through the valve with each heartbeat. This is called venous reflux, and it creates something called venous hypertension. abnormally elevated pressure inside the veins of the lower leg. That pressure has to go somewhere. It pushes outward on the vein wall. Over months and years, the wall dilates, twists, and becomes visibly tortuous. That is what you see on the surface of the skin. You are not looking at a cosmetic defect. You are looking at the end-stage expression of years of endothelial dysfunction and valve decompensation. But it goes deeper still. Sustained venous hypertension triggers a process called perivenous fibrosis. The tissue around the failing vein begins to stiffen and scar. This compresses lymphatic channels, reduces microcirculation to the skin, and creates the characteristic lipodermatosclerosis, that hard, discolored, woody skin texture you see around the ankles in advanced cases. This is not circulatory insufficiency at the surface. This is circulatory insufficiency reaching all the way down to your cellular mitochondria, which are being starved of oxygen because the blood that should be moving past them is pooling instead. Think of it this way. You are not drinking through your legs. Your legs are drinking nothing at all. They are sitting in their own backwash, inflamed and oxygen-deprived, while the rest of your body moves on without them. Now, what drives endothelial dysfunction in the first place? This is not a theory. It is a documented physiological reality. The primary drivers are chronic systemic inflammation, mediated by elevated inflammatory cytokines like interleukin-6 and TNF-alpha, oxidative stress that depletes nitric oxide bioavailability, and dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system, specifically the vagus nerve, which directly modulates venous tone through the parasympathetic venous smooth muscle axis. When your vagal tone is poor, your veins literally lose the nervous input they need to maintain wall integrity. Add to that chronic dehydration, which increases blood viscosity and slows venous return, and prolonged static posture, which eliminates the calf muscle pump mechanism that normally pushes blood upward with every step. The calf is not just a muscle, it is a peripheral heart. When you stop using it, your actual heart has to compensate, and your veins pay the price. I need to address something I hear constantly in my practice, and constantly in the comments of videos like this one. The myth is this: varicose veins are genetic, and if your mother had them, you will get them, and there is nothing you can do. This is clinically false, and I want to explain precisely why. Yes, there is a heritable component to connective tissue quality and venous valve morphology. Studies in twins show a heritability index of approximately 17 to 49% for varicose vein development. That means genetics explains, at most, roughly half of the variance in who develops them. The other half, and in many cases the decisive half, is driven by modifiable epigenetic and environmental factors. What this means in practice is that you may have inherited a predisposition to weaker valve connective tissue, but whether that predisposition becomes a disease is determined by your inflammatory load, your collagen synthesis capacity, your nitric oxide production, your movement patterns, and your dietary choices. You are not a passive recipient of your genome. You are its daily manager. Furthermore, and this is the part that genuinely frustrates me about the "it's just genetic" narrative, the genetic variants most associated with varicose veins are not in the valve structure genes. The strongest associations found in genome-wide studies are in genes related to connective tissue remodeling and inflammation signaling, meaning the primary genetic risk factor is not a weak vein. It is a tendency towards systemic inflammation, and systemic inflammation is one of the most addressable conditions in all of medicine. The genetics gave you a predisposition. The environment pulled the trigger. We are going to unload the gun. Phase 6. The clinical protocol. What I'm about to give you is a composite protocol built from the peer-reviewed literature on venous endothelial health, connective tissue synthesis, and autonomic tone. Translated into things you can do in your kitchen and your living room starting tonight. Every element has a mechanism. Nothing here is folklore. The morning endothelial activation drink, 30 minutes before breakfast, in 250 ml of room temperature water, dissolve 5 g of L-citrulline powder, not L-arginine. Citrulline has superior bioavailability for nitric oxide synthesis. The juice of half a lemon, approximately 50 milliliters explained, and 1 teaspoon of raw apple cider vinegar, 5 ml. Drink this standing up within 8 minutes. The L-citrulline is converted in the kidneys to L-arginine, which feeds the endothelial nitric oxide synthase enzyme. The very enzyme your endothelium uses to produce the nitric oxide that keeps your veins supple. The lemon provides vitamin C, which protects nitric oxide from oxidative degradation. The apple cider vinegar modulates postprandial glycemic response, reducing the inflammatory spike after your first meal. The calf pump activation sequence, Thraze daily, morning, midday, and 2 hours before bed. Stand barefoot on a flat surface. Rise to your toes as high as you can. This is a full calf raise. And hold for exactly 3 seconds at the top. Lower slowly over 4 seconds. Repeat 20 times. Rest 60 seconds. Repeat for 3 total sets. That is 60 calf raises per session, 180 per day. Each calf contraction generates approximately 50 by 120 milliliters of pressure in the deep venous system, actively pushing blood upward against gravity. This is not exercise. This is rehabilitation of your peripheral cardiac function. If you sit at a desk, perform the midday session at your desk without standing. Point your toes up toward your shins, hold 3 seconds, release. This activates the anterior tibialis and secondarily assists venous return even in a seated position. The anti-inflammatory collagen substrate meal, daily at lunch. Prepare a base of 200 grams of dark leafy greens, spinach or kale, dressed with 50 milliliters of extra virgin olive oil and 5 milliliters of apple cider vinegar. Add 1 medium beet, approximately 130 grams roasted or raw, grated. Beets contain dietary nitrates that are converted to nitric oxide via a salivary bacterial pathway entirely independent of the endothelial synthase route, meaning you are giving your veins 2 separate nitric oxide inputs simultaneously. Add 30 grams of walnuts for their omega-3 alpha-linolenic acid content, which directly suppresses the NF-κB inflammatory pathway that drives perivenous fibrosis. This meal costs under $2 per serving and does more for your venous endothelium than most prescription vasotonic medications. The elevation and vagal activation protocol, every evening, 20 minutes, lie on your back on the floor. Prop your legs against a wall so they form a 90-degree angle with your body. This is the legs up the wall posture, or in yoga, Viparita Karani. Set a timer for 20 minutes. While in this position, perform slow diaphragmatic breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds through the nose. Pause for 2 seconds. Exhale slowly for 8 seconds through slightly pursed lips. The prolonged exhale is critical. This breathing ratio activates the vagus nerve's cardiac branch and, through the parasympathetic venous axis, increases smooth muscle tone in the venous wall. Simultaneously, the gravitational drainage position reduces venous pressure in the lower limb by approximately 30 to 40 millimeters, allowing the valve leaflets to rest in their closed position and reducing the mechanical stress that accelerates valve degeneration. Do not skip this step. This is the step that works while you do nothing. The hydration standard, non-negotiable. Your minimum daily water intake for venous health is calculated as follows. Your body weight in kilograms multiplied by 35, expressed in milliliters. For a 70 kiloliter person, that is 2,400 by 50 milliliters, approximately 2.45 liters of plain water per day, consumed in intervals of no more than 400 milliliter per sitting. Blood viscosity increases measurably with even mild dehydration of 1 to 2%, and thick blood moves poorly through compromised veins. Hydration is not optional in this protocol. It is the medium in which everything else works. The topical support, optional but additive, mix 3 drops of pure horse chestnut seed extract, standardized to 20% essen, into 5 ml of a plain, fragrance-free carrier cream. Apply to the affected veins with gentle upward strokes, always toward the heart, never downward. Each evening before the wall elevation protocol, eisen has been shown in multiple randomized controlled trials to reduce vascular permeability and strengthen the venous wall matrix through collagen cross-linking mechanisms. This is not an essential oil recommendation. This is a pharmacologically active triterpene with a documented mechanism of action. I want to tell you about a woman I'll call Miriam. Miriam came to me at 54 years old. She was a school teacher, on her feet for 6 hours a day during teaching years, and then desk-bound for her administrative role after she moved to school management. She had watched her mother develop severe varicose veins in her 40s, had her own first visible vein appear at 47, and by the time she sat across from me, both of her lower legs looked like a topographic map. She wore trousers every day regardless of weather. She hadn't worn a dress in 4 years. She told me that didn't bother her, but her eyes said something different when she said it. She had already seen a vascular surgeon. So she'd been quoted €6,000 for laser ablation on the left leg, with a note that the right would probably follow. She had compression stockings in 3 colors. She'd tried them for 8 weeks and abandoned them because she couldn't put them on alone in the mornings and found them demeaning at her age. I did not offer Miriam a procedure. I gave her a version of this protocol, adapted to her schedule, her budget, and her physiology. We started with the morning drink. We started with the evening elevation. I asked her to walk on the balls of her feet for 5 minutes every time she moved between classrooms. At 12 weeks, the new vein formation had stopped. She confirmed this because she'd been photographing her legs every 2 weeks. I asked her to. The existing veins had not disappeared. I want to be honest with you. Established varicose veins are structurally remodeled tissue and regression is limited without intervention, but the throbbing had stopped. The heaviness was gone by noon instead of building all day. Her ankles were no longer swollen when she took her shoes off in the evening. At 6 months, she wore a dress to her nephew's wedding. She sent me a photograph of her legs at the reception. She didn't mention the veins in her message. She didn't need to. That is what this protocol does. It does not erase the past, but it changes the future. And for some of you who are still in the early stages, it may stop the progression before there is anything visible to erase. Before I go into the summary, I want to ask you something directly. How old are you? Drop your age in the comments right now. Just a number, that's all I need. Because the protocol I just gave you is a strong starting framework. But venous physiology changes meaningfully across decades. The hormonal drivers of valve degeneration in a 38-year-old woman are completely different from those in a 62-year-old man. The collagen turnover rate matters. The cardiovascular comorbidities matter. The medications someone is taking that affect venous tone, beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, certain antidepressants, all of that changes the calibration. If I see a significant cluster of responses in a particular age range, I will build a dedicated protocol video specifically for that cohort. Your comment takes 3 seconds. The video it generates could reach thousands of people at exactly the same stage of life as you. Drop your age. I read every single one. Let me bring this together for you. Here's what we cover today. Your protocol in plain language. Step 1. Drink 250 ml. L-citrulline plus, lemon plus, ACV every morning to restore endothelial nitric oxide production. Step 2, 20 calf raises x 3 sets, 3 times daily. Rebuild your peripheral cardiac pump. Step 3, eat dark greens, plus beets, plus walnuts daily to suppress fibrosis and restore nitric oxide from a second pathway. Step 4, legs up the wall for 20 minutes with 4-2-8 breathing every evening. Drain the veins and restore vagal tone. Step 5, drink your body weight, quite a G. X 35 ml of water daily. Blood viscosity is not negotiable. Step 6, apply horse chestnut essence cream upward each evening to strengthen the venous wall matrix. These are not suggestions. These are physiologically grounded interventions with published mechanisms. This is not a theory. It is a documented physiological reality that your veins respond to their environment. Change the environment, and you change the trajectory. I want to leave you with something I say to every patient who thanks me for helping them avoid a procedure or a prescription. I didn't help you avoid the system. I helped you not need it. The system profits from your treatment. I profit, if you can call it that, from you never needing to come back. That is the only model of medicine that I can stand behind after 15 years of watching people get recurring procedures for problems that were addressable at the root. You now have the root. What you do with it is entirely yours. If this video helped you, share it with one person who is covering their legs in summer. That one share might be the thing that changes their next 5 years, and I will see you in the next one.